really, really hard, and they execute your system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Trust.
He's pretty big trust.
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.
We're back on the Jumbo Set podcast. It is Thursday, August 29th. My name is Jake Louque. I'm joined on my screen by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz, assuming the fighting position for everyone watching on YouTube. How's it going, pal? How's the standing desk going? I see you're enjoying your standing desk there again.
Very much so. I feel a lot better. My back never hurts, ever. I haven't had any back pain. Had some weird little sciatica. I don't know. I just woke up one day, and that just happens. I'm 31. I guess that is just what happens. But yeah, standing desk is going great. Been golfing a lot. I think I played 4 rounds in like maybe 6 days from vacation. I played good old River Downs, a cheap course where no one plays. You'll have the entire course to yourself. You can golf. You can finish a round in 2 hours and 25 minutes. The greens are so firm. It's like concrete. They're not even that bad looking, but they're just so firm. Like you can have a nice soft chip and the ball will just jump off of it.
That's a weird course, man. I had some friends that lived back there actually in high school.
Corey Smith used to live there.
The par 3 on the back 9, their backyard like went right up to it. So whenever I play there, which is not often for some of the reasons that you're mentioning, it's always a nice little nostalgia trip. I don't hate it. Yeah, I also do have some weird association with it because when COVID, like that first weekend that it hit, like me and my buddy, like when the day everything shut down, it was like that St. Patrick's Day weekend. We went and played Chaladon, and every weekend, everything St. Patrick's Day weekend, my college friends all go down to Ocean City for our friend's birthday and St. Patrick's Day, kind of do a whole celebration. Everything kind of shut down, and we were like 2 of the guys that decided not to go for the COVID reasons. And so we were like, we might as well try to play golf. So we booked a tee time at Oakmont. We went there. They're like, hey guys, like we're shutting down, so like you can't play. So they're like, all right, well, let's try to find somewhere else. So we went to River Downs, and there was one lady in the pro shop. She was like, yeah, like nobody's here. Like, I don't really know what's going on or what's going to happen, but if you guys want to go out and play, like you're more than welcome. So we paid our greens fees and we went and played, and then the world promptly shut down all around us. And that is one memory that I'll always have of River Downs. Interesting spot.
Yeah, it's a shame they don't maintain it more, but literally no one plays there. The last like 2 or 3 times I played there isn't another group. You just are by yourself. So I was joking around with my buddy. I played with my buddy, and I was like, yeah, I took you out here to kill you because there's no one out there. But, yeah, a lot of fun. Got myself a nice Callaway Paradigm 3-wood with a Tour ADP shaft, extra stiff. Been cranking that a little bit. Topped it a couple times, but it's coming along. I'm feeling good. Next year's going to be a big year for me, so I'm fired up about that.
Cranking your extra stiff shaft, huh?
Oh, yeah, always extra stiff. Always so stiff. So that's been a lot of fun, and yeah, ready for football season, man. 53 rosters here. Preseason's over. Chiefs 2 weeks from tomorrow, from today, probably if you're listening to this. So big shift. Ready for it. We got college football. We got Shadur Sanders and the Fighting Colorado Buffaloes about to play some college football. That's a lot of fun. Had a little sprinkle of week 0.
I believe it's 1 week from tomorrow or today as you'll listen to this.
Is it? Yeah, it is. Never mind. I'm all messed up. Even closer than I thought. So, right, ready to go. Kickoff week 1. Fantastic. We'll have tons of previews, tons of fun, ready to go for that. We'll see if we don't really have, do we have Chiefs friends? Do we have a Chiefs friend?
Not that I can think of, no.
Let's see if we can get a Chiefs friend on. See what those hussies are up to.
I'm sure there are many that we can find.
Of course. So yeah, that's been my situation. Your birthday came and went. You're 29 years young now and went down the ocean. Did you have a good time?
No, I actually went up to I went up the ocetion. I
went
up to,
Wait,
Manhattan. Yeah, I went to Manhattan for a little 24-hour bachelor party situation for my buddy David. He's actually getting married this weekend on Sunday. So bachelor party last weekend. We, as the Ravens-Packers game was going on, I was literally biking up and down Manhattan. We started on like 104th Street, biked all the way down to Battery Park, biked all the way back up. It was quite an experience. Great food. got to enjoy a little bit of that New York nightlife, which I had never really done before. So that was a lot of fun. Went to a cool little bar, did some dancing, played some games. So yeah, it was a good birthday, kind of combined birthday party, bachelor party. So I had a good time. Didn't really watch any 1 second of that last preseason game at the Packers. I saw that Tylan Wallace touchdown, which was obviously great content. But other than that, I kind of tuned that game out a little bit. The preseason just taking on less and less import as the years go on here for me.
Yeah, it has not been a terribly exciting. It's really exciting for a rookie quarterback or a rebuilding team or a younger team, a new head coach, all those kinds of things. Like Panthers fans are super into it right now with Canales coming in and Bryce Young year 2 and all that kind of stuff. So Ravens just kind of status quo, a couple rookies. Nate Wiggins obviously made some plays throughout, but come and gone, and we'll knock on wood, practice. We did see Marcus Peters and Gus Edwards blow their knees out within 30 minutes of each other in practice leading up to week 1, but made it through pretty unscathed, right? Owen Wright takes an injury, unfortunately. Looked like he had a chance to fight for the third running back spot. Had a couple nice kick returns. He goes down, but relatively made it through unscathed, so got to be thankful for that. Did think it was interesting. Some guys played a ton. I don't know. I was like feeling kind of like a new modern sissy in a way, because I was like, why are they playing Trenton Simpson so much? And I was like, he might have played 4 games like 5 years ago, like 10 years ago. He probably would have played 4 games, one of them being like an entire game. So it is what it is. Yeah, preseason doesn't have a lot of pizzazz, to your point, anymore. But we made it. We made it through all that stuff, and just Brandon Ayuk talk and all that good stuff that you like.
Yep, absolutely. Listen, that's still going on. Don't worry. Now we've got the Commanders potentially getting into the mix. There's just, that situation continues to unfold, and, the unrest. It's like following a conflict on the other side of the globe. You're just week to week updates. You're tuned into Reuters and all these outlets. Everyone's just covering the Brandon Ayuk thing with bated breath there. Though it sounds like they're back to the negotiating table. Maybe it was all a negotiating ploy by Brandon Ayuk in his camp. 49ers probably going to pay him. That's my prediction. That's how that's going to go in my book.
Yeah, it'll settle somewhere sometime. Trent Williams also holding out. Jamar Chase still, I think he showed up, but wore street clothes to practice today, Wednesday, something like that. So some holdouts, some hold-ins, all that good stuff. CeeDee Lamb signs his extension and gets paid a pretty penny, who the Ravens will see pretty early on here. So couple little bubbles. But again, this offseason, really, I'll say it one last time, and it's not even the offseason, it is the season. Training camp is the new season. It's the 2024-2025 season, but I can't recall there being such a smooth turnover in terms of turnover from teams, coaches, players, things like that from one season to the next. It feels like we kind of just mind melded, like we were in Interstellar and we were on the planet where gravity was 10 times stronger or whatever, and the days went by quicker. This offseason flew by, and I don't know, again, feels like Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta. There's a couple signings, couple trades, but NFL's kind of running it back in many ways.
Yeah, I was messing around with my playoff predictor site a little bit earlier today. We're going to do our big mega preview episode next week, I assume, before we get into that week 1 preview, which will come later in the week. So check out that on the jumbo set. Kind of feels like things are, to your point, running it back a little bit. I felt like there was a lot of carryover from what I was predicting last year to this one, although I do have some teams that I think are going to be pretty strong this year that I think a lot of people won't necessarily see as a surprise, but it will be a nice shakeup in the NFL landscape. Los Angeles Chargers, I'm looking at you as one of them in particular.
Yeah, a few teams. The NFC South is interesting. The AFC South is interesting. The NFC North is interesting. The Jets, can they get their shit together for one season? All those teams. So, yeah, like you said, we'll get into that next week. But here today, ultimately, to talk about, it is the initial 53-man roster because there's still some shuffling, some signings, some trades that tend to happen. Guys go on IR, PUP, all of those things, and it has kind of been. But, yeah, with that in mind, we can get into it.
All right, let's do it. So as you were agonizing over last night, the Ravens obviously waited until the very last minute. Chiefs, one of the other teams, to announce their final 53. It finally goes up sometime last night. That's why we didn't record last night. Wanted to wait and make sure that we had, like you said, the initial sort of false fall, if you're a Marylander, of what this final 53 is going to look like. But yeah, to your point, guys will go on IR, guys will go on the PUP. Hosting Lawrence Guy for a visit today at the Castle. So could be some shakeup to go through. But what we're going to do for this episode is just kind of go through this 53-man roster here as I pull it up for people watching on YouTube. And we're just going to go through it one by one. I've got one question that I'm going to pause it to you. We can sort of get into the discussion and, just have a little kind of natural, organic conversation framed around that one question. So here we go. We start off with the quarterbacks. Obviously, you get Lamar Jackson. You get Josh Johnson as your 1-2 punch there. It sounds like Devin Leary heading to the practice squad. Emory Jones also waived. I think he has made it through. Jeff Z kind of non-committal on whether he's going to be coming back to the practice squad. But my question, quarterback, I guess the one question that I have is the backup good enough to win, let's say, 2 or 3 games right now?
I think yes. I think we vastly overreact to preseason performance of quarterback, and Josh Johnson has shown to be fine. I think he can win a couple of games. I think the Ravens were willing to part with Tyler Huntley and save a nickel or two. And I think we didn't see him with any of the starters. We didn't see him with the offensive line. We didn't see him with the receivers. We certainly didn't see him with Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and all those guys. So I think once you get that aspect unlocked and then start getting into actually running some option football, actually breaking out into some more regular season, high level concepts, things of that nature, Josh Johnson is quite all right. He can put up 17, 20 points for you. I think he's like a Chase Daniel for years and years. Josh Johnson's fine. He's a known commodity. He can move the ball a bit. He is fine. He's a fine backup. Could they have maybe Jacoby Brissett? Sure, but Jacoby Brissett might start. So the margin of backup quarterback is important, but also, like we always say and everyone always says, doesn't end up mattering, because if your starter goes down and they make $250 million a year, it's an issue.
Yeah, no, it is an issue big time. And I don't know, it is something to consider, because last year we had the first fully healthy Lamar season in a couple seasons after he dealt with season-ending injuries for 2 years in a row. He also had a sort of a sick day there in 2021, which wound up being Tyler Huntley's first start at the Chicago Bears. Huntley winds up winning that game. So it's just always something to consider in any NFL, not just in, calling Lamar injury prone or anything like that, but I don't think people really think of Joe Burrow as injury prone, for example. That guy's had a couple big time injuries now in his career. So if I'm the Bengals, it's something I'm thinking about. Mahomes has missed time over the years. The Chiefs have had to win without him a little bit here and there. Josh Allen is a guy who has a play style that could get him injured here and there. It's just the reality of a modern NFL, where these guys are more mobile, a little bit more physical, and the seasons are longer now. You've got these 18-week seasons, and it's just a grind. So I think backup quarterback does have a little bit more import. I agree with you, though. I think if you need to win 2 or 3 games, I think Josh Johnson is fine. To your point, can you get you to that 20-point barrier and have the defense hold the line? I think you're in a better spot than others, depending on what you draw for that game. Like if you're going up against a really high-powered offense, maybe it's not fine, but overall, it's just one of those things where you kind of have to hope and pray that it is going to be good enough. So that's where we are at with quarterback, and then we will move on to running back. So Derrick Henry, obviously, he's the big ticket signing. He's the guy that you bring in to partially anchor this offense around. It's always going to be anchored around Lamar Jackson, of course. Then you get Rasheen Ali, Patrick Ricard, Justice Hill in no starting order. Justice Hill obviously has come on strong. He earned himself a contract. He is a good second option. I think a really good second option for you there at running back. And then Rasheen Ali, he makes it as a draft pick, as a 5th-round pick. I think some people were a little underwhelmed with his preseason performance, probably rightfully so. But you mentioned the injury to Owen Wright. Keaton Mitchell is going to start out the year on the PUP. He's probably going to be there for a while. I guess, we're pretty comfortable, right, with Derrick Henry and Justice Hill at the top there. Do you trust Rasheen Ali in Keaton Mitchell's absence? I guess I'll start you with that.
No, I don't. I don't trust him. I don't love his running style. I think he has some breakaway speed. I think he's fast. I think he's explosive in a straight line. High cut runner who is not pushing piles, doesn't have good leg drive, doesn't have a big lower trunk. He is a little top heavy in that regard, or runs that way, doesn't play behind his pads. So can develop as a receiver, can develop developmentally, absolutely fine. But if you remove Derrick Henry and you remove Justice Hill, I do not want Rasheen Ali getting in there at this point in time. He's been fighting some injuries as well. So They do end up having John Kelly on the practice squad there. I was upset to see Owen Wright, who has been really solid throughout preseason, and I would have liked to see make that third running back spot potentially. But yeah, I'm not big on Rasheen Ali in his rookie year. Maybe week 10 when he is in the second half where you're not a rookie anymore, quote unquote. So yeah, no, not a huge fan of what I've seen so far from Ali. Hopefully he proves me wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Again, I think that this was just kind of one where they sort of gambled on a guy. They knew that Mitchell was going to miss a lot of time, so they pick a guy in the draft who they were hoping was going to have a little bit of upside and then have him battle it out with other dudes. They had him battle it out with Owen Wright, and it didn't work out with Owen Wright's health. So this is just kind of where you're at, and I think they're going to have to find a way to soldier through it. If they do have to promote Kelly in his absence, maybe you do that. There are other running backs probably out there on the market that they're monitoring, I would imagine. Dalvin Cook was a guy they had some familiarity with. He signs with Dallas, so he's not going to be an option. But that third running back spot is just another one where, you know, it would have been great to have a Keaton Mitchell and his speed and electricity that he brings to this offense. But, you know, sometimes it's just the rub of the green. I think last year they probably weren't expecting Mitchell to make the impact that he did in the games that he played, right? I'm sure they liked his potential as an undrafted free agent, but he really came in and, man, he brought a dynamic to this offense that I think they really needed as a home run hitter. You think about that long run against the Browns for the touchdown, some other really electrifying plays that he made. So it's unfortunate that he had the injury that he did, but it's also, I don't think, prudent to expect him. We've been having this conversation with Oriole players that have been injured, like expecting guys to come back and just be 100% of what they were right away is probably not prudent either. So I think this is going to be a thing that they're going to be monitoring all year long. We'll see what they get from Keaton Mitchell. I don't know if it's going to be that 100% rock solid electrifying presence, even when he does come back. So I think this is probably going to be a year-long thing, but they will be relying on Henry. Lamar Jackson obviously is going to remain involved in the running game, and Justice Hill brings you something a little bit different out of the backfield as well. So they're in a solid spot, but it's not ideal with that third running back in particular.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of teams that are 3 deep at back, but John Kelly, I think, ends up getting pulled to play, and Ali probably is going to miss some time. So I would not be shocked if that's the case, and wouldn't be shocked to see them bring in another back. The Matt Breidas of the world, there's a couple guys floating around. Samaje Perine was a name that was floated. He ends up signing with the Chiefs.
Yep, absolutely. Moving on to wide receivers. So you get Deontay Hardy. He's going to serve as kind of your return man. You know, John loves this return guy. So he makes the roster as your 6th option. And then Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar are your presumed starters. Tylan Wallace makes it again. Like we said, he had a good preseason. He's made some nice plays in his pro career. And Devontae Walker as your kind of intriguing 4th-round rookie. At wide receiver, I said, do you expect any drop-off after losing Beckham and not making a veteran signing? Or is there an 80-20 case to be argued for Rashad Bateman making plays in that absence?
I don't love the depth that they have there. I think Zay Flowers is probably one of the most pivotal players on this team, and pivotal in terms of staying healthy. The availability of Zay Flowers, I think, is a huge driving factor of this team. I'm obviously high on Bateman, but what Flowers is able to do is a little different than what Bateman can do, and I don't know that the drop-off from Flowers to Bateman is as, in some ways, is as tight as maybe Bateman to Aguilar. I think Aguilar can do some of the things Bateman does. So don't think that they can survive a Zay Flowers injury as their fit, and I think that is a mistake. I think that not having another explosive weapon in the pass game on the perimeter is wise. I think they need another, and I think a lot of Ravens fans feel that way. And I think week 1, walking into Kansas City, I think you're good. I think you're good to go with the rest of the skill position players. Flowers, Bateman, Andrews, Likely, Henry, Hill, Aguilar, Ricard. That's a fine group. It's a fine group. Kohler will get in the mix. You know, Wallace will get in the mix. Tez Walker at some point there. We'll see. But I just think it's a little bit of user error. We watched them do that the other year in 2021 with Bateman. 2021? 2022. 2022 with Bateman. Yeah, 2022 with Bateman.
It looked good out of the game.
Exactly. And it looked fine. I was like, oh, okay, cool. They've got a stud, and that's fine. And then he's not there anymore, and then you're screwed. And then suddenly you've got Deshaun Jackson catching, starting, essentially as a 3rd down starter in passing downs in week like 14 or whatever that was. So I don't like it. If they're a little too thin there, they are definitely being gentle with ways that they attack. They want their draft picks. I think Eric DaCosta, as we've always said, is very forthright. There's much less smoke and mirrors than with Ozzie Newsome. And, there have been some instances of some cheeky moments, but he hasn't made any lunges. They didn't make any lunges. They extended Matabike. They extended Roquan Smith. They signed Lamar Jackson, obviously. Henry is a cost-effective option. That's not something, if Derrick Henry for some reason is removed and you just have his cap hit left, it's fine. There's no harm, no foul, really. Hardly, the other end of that is the Bills, after signing Josh Allen's contract, signing Von Miller at his age with his injuries and the wear and tear to a monster contract that bit them in the ass. So those two teams, I think, need to find a happy medium of that. And the Ravens have spent money. They've drafted a lot of players. They're trying to get back to their ways of building through the draft. And it's tough. I mean, we're watching CeeDee Lamb get $140 million. So you don't have that to throw around right this second. Otherwise, you are so stiff and inflexible to the cap that any misstep you make will ruin your team. So they don't have that in them. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up. But this receiver room, as is plenty good enough. I will say I've pondered on this over the last week waiting for the podcast, but I think that this is the best group of skill position players that Lamar Jackson has had. And I think this is the best group of skill position players that Derrick Henry has played on. And I do think that the Derrick Henry signing is vastly underrated in terms of the impact. I think once football starts and we see Derrick Henry carrying the ball in a Ravens uniform with Lamar Jackson, who presents such a dynamic issue in the run game, everyone's gonna be like, oh shit, yeah, okay, yep, this is an issue. I think a lot of like little anonymous on the athletic surveys of executives and ESPN and all of those things have talked about that. Like, I think we're greatly undervaluing that. So as is, I think this is great. What did Henry played with AJ Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, Khalif Raymond. I think I would take this group because there's just more with Andrews and Likely and Flowers and Bateman. I would take this group probably over that one. Maybe you can argue. If you want to argue that Brown, Andrews, Bateman is better, sure, fine. But I'm taking this group for Titans over the last few years and Ravens over the last few years. So it's good unless Zay Flowers goes down. Then you're probably in some trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the Beckham signing, I think it was a bit of a philosophical overcorrection, right? We talked about the wide receiver tax of big name wide receivers wanting to come and play in a Greg Roman offense. I think they overcorrected a little bit to sign Beckham, to get him in the building and tell Lamar Jackson, hey, we're serious about building around you. And I think that was a worthwhile price to pay. And they got some decent football out of Beckham. They got some big plays out of him last year, but overall, probably not worth that price tag that he ultimately wound up, they wound up giving him. And using void years and everything. It was a big philosophical shift for them last year. I don't think this one is a huge philosophical shift back in the other direction, but it is a little bit of a correction back to where they were initially, and maybe it philosophically reflects what they want to do this season, where they sign Henry. They're probably very comfortable about the development of Likely to where they can start to run those personnel groupings that we've been talking about all summer with having Likely and Andrews on the field at the same time. That puts you back down to 2 wide receivers. And you're going a little bit back into the direction that you were in. I think there's a lot of we've been talking about it ad nauseum for 5 years. Is that good enough to win a Super Bowl? Well, feels like they tried everything at this point, and what they tried last year, it ultimately wasn't. So I don't know if there is one thing that's this sort of skeleton key solution that's going to push you over the edge. And, really, that's not even the concern for me right now. Like the point that you make about the wide receiver room, I think it is very thin right now. I think Flowers is great. I think Bateman is good in theory if he can stay healthy. I think Aguilar is a very solid number 3. Behind him, you got some question marks. And if one of those top guys goes down, you're in a pretty tough spot. So I think they're really gambling a little bit on this positional grouping stuff that they want to do with the tight ends. I think it's, could be a worthwhile gamble, but we'll certainly see. I do have other bigger concerns with this roster right now, but as far as that correction back to the mean, it's not that surprising. And overall, I don't think it's going to affect their win totals too much. It is just, where is that ultimately going to put you when the season is said and done? So that's the wide receiver room. It's always going to be a hot topic here in Baltimore. That is for sure. Moving on to the tight ends, which we were just talking about. Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar, Mark Andrews, no surprise here. Is a breakout season for Isaiah Likely imminent, like a real legit breakout? And does this make you question Mark Andrews' future in Baltimore after signing that contract a couple of years ago?
Don't question Mark Andrews' future. The Ravens do have Likely for this year and next year. I do think that Likely is a really strong early extension candidate, and I floated, as quickly as possible, trying to get him a 3-year deal where he could re-up again and maybe cash in 1 year early, then have a 2-year contract with the Ravens. Essentially, that's what an extension is, replacing his 4th year with his rookie deal with a more expensive amount of money, more bonus money, all those kinds of things, then letting him hit the market again. So Likely has to be a factor in what we were just talking about, right? That has to be the reason why. Absolutely has to. He's 24 years old. He played so well, not just last year. I saw a lot of, it's just Twitter replies, but a lot of those saying like, oh, he had 6 good games last year. He did the same thing the year before when Mark Andrews got hurt. As soon as he was the relied upon tight end, he is an X factor. He is an impact player. And we've seen him get better as a blocker. He is so good after the catch. He looks better. He looks more dominant than he did at Coastal Carolina to me. Like, I think the physical dominance that he has, the way his body composition has changed, his processing, the speed at which he makes decisions as a route runner or a runner is even more dominant than it looked like at Coastal Carolina against, not the best competition in college football. I think he has aged well, aged fantastically. So Likely is the one, right? He's the guy. It's kind of him and Bateman. Like the Ravens are going to win. Lamar Jackson is 58-19 as a starter. They're going to win 11 games. The math. At this point, we have a large enough sample size and QB wins, whatever. When you've got a $250 million quarterback, I'm bringing QB wins in. If it's Brock Purdy, it's not QB wins. He's not taking up your entire salary cap. He's taking none of it.
You know it when you see it. Shout out to Potter Stewart.
Exactly. So I'm looking at Hurts. I'm looking at Mahomes. I'm looking at Burrow. I'm looking at Allen. I'm looking at Jackson. I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence now. I'm looking at Tua, all these guys, Dak. QB wins matter for them. They are the driver way more so than rookie quarterback guys. So you're going to win 11 or 12 games if Lamar Jackson is on the football field for 17 games. So for them to be a 14-win team and a 1-seed team and a team that wins the AFC Championship, I look at Likely and I look at Bateman out of the skill position group. You can ask questions about Mark Andrews, absolutely, coming off the injury. I feel like he's probably fine. He's probably in the process of losing a step, but still getting smarter. Tight ends age so well, which we were just talking about with Likely. The older they get, the better they get. Look at Kelsey. Look at Jason Witten. Jason Witten couldn't even run a route and was still so good late in his career. So I think that Likely and Bateman are the X factors, and Likely himself has to be involved in a huge portion of plays. I mean, who would you rather? This doesn't even quite work. Like you do opponent matchups and things like that, but we're in fantasy football, draft season, the season's kicking off. Who would you rather play more snaps, Nelson Agholor or Isaiah Likely? Like you said, Nelson Agholor is a nice player, but I would rather see more Isaiah Likely on the field than him. I would rather see him on the field. I would like him and Bateman to come close to a snap share, 50, 60% of snaps, 45, 50, 55% of snaps there. So Likely is the guy. He is the one. He is the driving force. He's a young player seeking a contract. We always talk about that. Have a vet, have someone that's hitting their peak, hitting their prime athletically, and then a younger guy in the room too. And while Kohler and Likely are from the same draft class, that's kind of what Kohler does here. So Likely after the catch, Likely manufacturing him touches, Likely being someone that takes a beating on this team, like goes and trucks into piles of defenders for first downs and doesn't need to protect his body at this point. Like that's him. So I'm looking at him as again, the difference between a 10-11 win team and a 12-13-14 win team.
Yeah. And I think, as far as this room is concerned, I see a relatively close snap share in terms of Andrews and Likely together as the year kicks off. Andrews was not ready to come back for that AFC Championship game. You looked at him. He looked a little bit slower. He looked a little bit less decisive attacking balls in just the limited sample size that we got there. I commend him for coming back, but I think it was too early, and I think he might still be working his way back. He just got in a car accident. He's diabetic. Like, there's stuff going on with Andrews. He's getting older, to your point. There's plenty of a case to be made for the fact that him and Likely are essentially just split starters at this point. We're not quite there, but we're getting there based upon what we've seen. You've made the point about Likely. In his rookie year, I think that was, Andrews gets hurt for a little while. He made a big play in that Saints game, I remember, for a touchdown. He was involved early on, and he was a pro player right from the get-go, and he's only gotten better. So I love this room. I'm excited to see what they do with it. I'm really excited for this 2 tight end offense that we've been talking about a lot. I think Todd Monken's going to do some good stuff with these guys. And you mentioned the Likely versus Bateman or Likely versus that third wide receiver, whoever it's going to be. I'm very much in favor of Isaiah Likely getting out there, especially what it's going to help you do in the run game with your point about him being an improved blocker. So I love this room. Moving on to the offensive line. We were talking about this a little bit with our guy Coley Boy in the group chat today. Predict a starting lineup from left to right now and give me a confidence rating from 1 to 10 in those starters.
I don't know, man. I mean, I know Stanley. I know Linderbaum. I don't know anything else. I only know 2 starters. The Ravens said they've decided. Cole and I have been in lockstep for a long time. Like, Ben Cleveland should be the starting right guard. I think that is what should happen. I would probably start McCary week 1. He's a known commodity. And I would let Rosengarten, get in there and wet his whistle a little bit and just chill out, settle, feel the game, all that good stuff. Left guard, I'm not surprised if Josh Johnson starts at left guard. Or Josh Jones, pardon me. I'm not surprised if Josh Jones starts at left guard. I'm not surprised if it's Voorhees. My best guess, like, you pick the 5 that are going to start, like, gambling-wise. I would say Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum. I really don't know. I mean, Falele, I guess, if I had to. And I don't know. McCary. That would be my best guess, I suppose. I really don't understand the Cleveland thing. He's good. He's good at football. He's fine. He's sturdy. He isn't maybe like a mauler like his frame suggests. He's a lot more fleet of foot and quick and finesse and great in pass pro. So I don't know. I really don't get sticking Falele in there against Chris Jones as his first start as a guard in his amateur, aka college/professional career. I don't know. Sure, go for it.
Having not really been a guard before, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's not his skill set yet. He looked all right there. I mean, I don't think he's a guard. I still don't love it. He looked better than I thought he would look after a couple weeks, and I'm sure he'll continue to improve. Everything everyone says about him is that he is a really, really hard worker. He basically doesn't leave Owings Mills most of the year, goes into the weight room, all that good stuff. So sounds like the opposite of Ben Cleveland. Sounds like that's why if Falele starts, he starts over Cleveland. Cleveland likes to, go fish and party and hang out with his friends. But I think he plays football well, and I don't think that has to be the end of the world. I don't think everyone has to be first guy in, last guy out. Like, it's not the case. Some guys are just fucking good at football. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like that. I like Falele a lot. I loved him as a prospect. I had a 2nd round grade on him, especially in Greg Roman's system. But I don't know. I don't understand it. Left guard, I don't know. Voorhees or Jones, whatever. I don't know. I feel like the Ravens. It's a tough. What do you want to do? Do you want to take your lumps now, or do you want to take them later? Do you want to put like the vet Jones at left guard and McCary at right tackle? And I don't know what's going on with Cleveland. I'd say Cleveland.
I think they want to take him now. They said before anything happened transactionally this offseason, they said, we want to rebuild this offensive line. And that is a big gamble. And they took a big gamble in letting vets go and shipping vets off. And I do think it's going to be Stanley. I think it's going to be Voorhees. I think they love him at left guard. Linderbaum, obviously. I think it will be Cleveland. I do think he's kind of earned it. And they're just in a spot where, like you said, they could gamble on Falele, but it just feels positionally a little bit weird to start out a guy like that, to your point, does not have a ton of experience against Chris Jones at right guard. I think it should kind of by virtue be Cleveland. Then I think it will be Rosengarten at right tackle. I like the idea of McCary there, but I do think that they love him as kind of that swing guy, that rotational guy. So ultimately, I just think they said they wanted to rebuild this thing, and I think they'll be comfortable doing it on the fly. It does suck. We haven't talked today about the fact that Joe D. Alessandris, obviously he had been out with health issues. He passed away this past week, and it was nice to see a lot of tributes and outpouring of love for that guy, because he did a lot of good things for this organization. And on the football side of it, I mean, obviously this is bigger than football, but that was one of the things that I was bemoaning about this training camp was his absence. I mean, that does suck to lose a guy like that when it comes to the development of all these young guys that they brought in. So that's another wrench that you throw into the mix there. But I mean, if you're going to do it, it's, Breaking Bad. It's Mike Ehrmantraut. No more half measures. I think there's not going to be any half measures here. I think they set out to rebuild this thing. I think they're down to sink or swim with it. And I think there are going to be some growing pains, but that's who I've got as the starters on this offensive line right now.
Yeah, again, it's just really, I get Voorhees, I get Rosengarten. The one that just confuses me is Cleveland. It feels so much like the Ben Powers situation, but it just feels like darker in a way. I don't know, more mysterious. It's very confusing. So
it made sense that Ben Powers took a while, right? It doesn't really feel like it makes sense what's happened with Cleveland.
I can even get taking a while. I just don't get him not being with the ones in practice throughout camp this year. And I don't get him. I just don't get Falele over him. Falele should be coming off the bench. He can play tackle. Cleveland, they have play a little center because that's what you do in football. You have your guards play some center and your exhibition match against the private school or whatever. When you do your intra-squad scrimmages, you mess around. But I don't understand that. I don't think Falele is a long-term answer at guard. Maybe I'm wrong. He is a crazy athlete in many ways. But, yeah, I think it should be Cleveland, and I'm pretty adamant about that. And it's just funny when overall to kind of steer in a different direction. When I look at this roster, it's like my interpretation of this roster is like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, 25 offensive linemen and 25 defensive backs. They have 10 offensive linemen making this roster initially, and it just feels like so many. They have so many.
I always love the wide receiver brain pilled people on Twitter. They're like, I think this might be the year they're going to keep 7. They're going to keep 7. And it's like, no, they might keep 5, my friend. They love these, they love their trenches and they love their defensive backs. And I think for defensive backs,
that seventh receiver will really be the difference to getting the Justin Jefferson that you've been longing for when you play Madden Ultimate Team.
Coming back to the offensive line, building it on the fly. I think they're really going to take some lumps early. But ultimately, I trust this organization with offensive line a lot more than I do with other positions. So if they're gambling on this, I'm okay with them doing it. But like I said, it's probably not going to be comfortable starting things out. Moving on to the defensive line, Michael Pierce, nose tackle, Justin Madubuike, DT, Roderick Washington, DE, DT, Brent Urban, DE, Travis Jones, DT. Interestingly, today they host Lawrence Guy, a familiar face. He's been gone for a couple of years now, but he was a guy who was a solid rotational player for them years back. They bring him in for a visit today. That kind of had me questioning, how confident do you think the Ravens are in Brent Urban and Roderick Washington as their rotational pieces? Because I think you're pretty locked in with those top couple of guys.
I feel great about Brent Urban. He was awesome last year. He eats double. He's just a perfect. He's mid, and that's what Cole and I were talking about. If you're not elite, then you're mid. And he has 3 things that he does really well. He gets his hands up and swats balls. He eats double teams, and he can get off of a block in the run game if you single block him, and has long arms. Again, they're all tied together, and he can make a tackle. That's defined for you. So it opens up other guys for more creativity. He's fine to just eat glass, basically. He's a giant, big-headed Canadian hockey playing, double team eater. So he's fine in that role. Broderick Washington had a weird situation last offseason, some weird drunken thing, and was really disappointing earlier in the year. Looked really good in preseason. I feel great about Broderick Washington. I think he's back on the righteous path that John Harbaugh and the boys want him on. I think he's going to have a really nice season. So 5 defensive linemen, thin-ish. I mean, you see teams with that. That's a rotation that 5 guys are playing. Like all 5 guys are playing a lot. Like Brent Urban's going to play, I would say at least 15, 20% of snaps at the lowest. Broderick Washington, I think, is playing 15, 20% of snaps at the lowest. And that would be like 1 out of 17 weeks those guys are playing 15% of snaps. So, you mentioned the other 3. You feel solid there. Travis Jones, this is supposed to be a big year for him, of course. We'll see how that trends. But those 2 guys, like you mentioned, I feel really good there. I like them. I would like to see them add another guy, DB that goes on, short-term IR. Another guy named Guy, that's fine. Whoever. I would like to see 6. I don't think that's enough. Again, I always assume when I look at these rosters and depth charts, I always just remove one immediately. It's football, you get hurt.
We'll get into the defensive backs, but there were 2 young, relatively unheralded guys that made it. I think one of them is probably going to be a nice IR stash. I think Sanusi Kane or one of those guys will probably try to sneak onto the IR and then bring in your Larry Guy, to be that 6th man in this group.
Yeah, and they could even wait. Who knows? Maybe there's another surprise cut or something in the next couple of days. But Guy makes sense. He's a lot like Urban in many ways, was previously here. Michael Pierce as well. There'll be 3 vets that left and then came back after getting, a little payday situation. So, yeah, I think Guy would be a good addition. And I like this group a lot. I think they're versatile. And I think Justin Madubuike, I'm really curious about his usage overall. He did play like 4-tech or 4-eye or a little wider than a defensive tackle a good bit last year. So does that increase? He's built that way. He has that kind of frame. He has that kind of speed, that get off, that quickness, flexibility, all those things. So I will say I'm not surprised to see his sack production go down to 8 and people to be like, oh, he only has 8 sacks. But I think he's going to have an even better year. I think he's just going to keep trending in the right direction. He is such an incredible athlete. He's built so uniquely to be able to play defensive lineman. And again, the Aaron Donald comparison. I mean, Justin Madubuike might be 260 pounds right now. He might be 270 pounds. That's what the state of the NFL is. We check online, he's 300. There's no way he's 300 pounds. So curious to see what this group does. Michael Pierce in there. Healthy year for Michael Pierce goes a long way. I mean, he's a true nose guard. He's a vet. He knows what he's doing. He's an impact player as a nose guard, as a nose tackle. So fired up for him. And then those two with a guy like the player I'm talking about as well, when we're like, oh, Urban has such a defined role, it opens up for other guys. Travis Jones, he's kind of the kicker, right? Yeah. He's kind of in that Isaiah Likely category, that Rashad Bateman category. Younger guys that have played good football. You're looking to see him play great football. So I like this group. Like it a lot. Really do.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think Jones is the guy that I'm keeping an eye on as a dude who is starting to probably think about that next contract. I think he wants to get a little bit more production and really start to announce himself as a real player. So he's a guy that I'm certainly keeping an eye on amongst this group, but not really a whole lot to say about this group that you didn't already. I am very comfortable with Urban. I think Washington, there's been some ups and downs in his career, but they got him signed. He can be a solid rotational piece when he is there and ready and able to play. So yeah, I'm pretty much all good with him. And if they do want to bring in Lawrence Guy and be 6 deep, I'm good with that too. And a nice year from Michael Pierce would be good to see as well. Moving on to the linebackers, they group them all together here. So you got Roquan Smith, Trenton Simpson, Malik Harrison, Chris Board, Adisa Isaac, Kyle Van Noy, David Ojabo, Tavius Robinson, Odafe Owe. Starting out with the middle linebackers, how much of a drop-off are we expecting from Patrick Queen to Trenton Simpson?
A little at first, and the little is mainly in coverage. I think that's just going to be spot dropping, and both of them came out as true juniors. Queen went right into the fire. Simpson got to sit and got to go through preseason again and all those things. So I think the spot dropping and some of the carrying might take a little time. I did see some nice things out of him in man coverage when he kind of turned and ran with some tight ends and things. Eyes in zone, processing, being quick. I think Queen was a veteran at this point, and that is not going to come as quickly, but the physicality, it's different. They're different players. I mean, Simpson's a little bigger. He plays a little bit more thumping style. The thing that I didn't love about Simpson, but I also do love, is that it's funny. Patrick Queen had the play last year where he was on a stunt and could have just ran at the quarterback. I forget who they were playing. And I think they ended up getting a quarterback hit, but he could have just, I think the Chargers, it was against the Chargers. Yeah, he could have just darted at the quarterback, but instead he executed his stunt. That's the same kind of thing I see out of Simpson in the run game at times, where there's a hole for him to shoot a back that is kind of stuck, but instead he will go shoulder and engage the blocker, the offensive lineman instead, which is good because he's not shying away from physicality, but I want to see him get quicker to recognize, I have to shoot. Bam. He's still 1/2 beat behind processing how to engage. That's the two things I really see that stick out. He is a good tackler. He is a better tackler than Patrick Queen, I think, in terms, especially when Queen was young. He's stronger. He takes kind of a more balanced, controlled, confident approach to sweep up. He's a strong dude. So I'm curious to see his impact blitzing. What Queen did really well was stunt, like we just talked about. He could knock he would bowling ball 2 offensive linemen for Madubuike to come loop. Madubuike had 6 sacks on stunts with Patrick Queen last year, something crazy. So that I'm curious to see what he can do. That was kind of the real ace in the hole that Patrick Queen had. But overall, that to me sounds like just a slight drop off because he needs some experience. So I think in zone, it'll be, zone looks, eyes up, spot dropping, carrying. That'll take a little bit of time, against mesh, processing mesh, and some of the stuff involving running backs out of the flat, fast to the flat. So I think Simpson's going to be a really good player. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think we're going to see a lot of impact plays. There will be a lot of little plays. What I see happening is it could be a 2-yard gain and he makes it a 4 because, like I said, he's got to fit a little quicker, process a little quicker, stick his shoulder pads in and stop the back or the ball carrier from getting momentum. So I think we're going to see the learning experience and learning curve there. But again, fantastic athlete, smooth, confident. I think he's just a little more confident than Patrick Queen was coming out. And again, comparing them more as like rookie, second-year players. I think we see a little more even keel, a little more balance, a little less low, a little less low, a little bit less high. But ultimately, I'm excited for Simpson. I think he might be a player that towards the end of this year and next year that people will start wanting to buy his jersey. Was what I tweeted after watching a couple preseason games.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the old Belichickism of just do your job, right? Just know where you need to be and execute. I think that was something that Queen maybe struggled a little bit early on in his career. I think he got off to a really, solid start as a rookie in 2020. You know, he had some big impact games, and I think a lot of that was due to the fact that he was able to just pin his ears back and just, go and, be an athlete and make splash plays. But that's also where he got victimized a little bit. You think about that Chiefs game early on where he was getting victimized in coverage, and that was where a lot of the narratives really around his career started to develop and I think sort of run out of control and run like wildfire. And he's still probably trying to beat those allegations a little bit, even after already signing the contract with Pittsburgh. So ultimately, it's just about setting a good narrative for you early in your career. And I think that starts with gap discipline. And if Trenton Simpson is caught up to speed on that, I think they'll be fine. And I think the 80-20 rule, as people talk about it, will prove itself, right once again in this case. Looking at these linebackers again, we could have moved on right to outside linebacker, but one thing I'm picking up on here, they grouped all the linebackers together. They have designated everyone as either an inside backer or an outside backer, except for Malik Harrison, who they just list as linebacker. This guy has been a little bit positionless for them over the last couple of years. He's played, I think, some decent football. He's been disruptive. What's your thoughts on Malik Harrison's role with this team? Is it going to continue to be positionless? Is it going to be more role specific? And what's better for the team ultimately for him in 2024?
Well, he plays base, strong side, outside linebacker, which they can call a rush. He's going to be the one that is going to set the edge on the tight end on the strong side of the formation. So when you've got 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers in the game, Malik Harrison will be an outside linebacker. In nickel, he can be an inside linebacker. If you're doing kind of a 4-3, so to call it, he could play off outside linebacker. So I think it is just dependent on the personnel really and the down and distance. So situation and personnel. And I think he just 1st and 10, if you've got Pierce, Jones, and Urban, and then you got Owe on the other side or Robinson on the other side, that's when you'll see Harrison. But if it's Owe and Robinson and then Matabike and Washington and Roquan Smith, and you don't want Trenton Simpson on, then Malik Harrison's next to Roquan Smith. So I think that kind of is the defined role. He's a good special teamer as well. And so Malik Harrison's going to play linebacker. He's going to play outside linebacker. He's going to play inside linebacker. And again, I think it's just defined by down and distance and personnel.
You're getting a little Gruden on me there. He's a football player, man.
Football player, man. Knock on wood if you're with me, man.
It's too bad what happened with that guy. He was very entertaining. Too bad he kind of turned out to be a little bit.
I think he just never emailed Dan Snyder. That's the lesson to be learned.
Jesus Christ, man! If only many people in the past had taken that advice, then Washington wouldn't be in the position they had been in for the last 30 years. It's unfortunate. Never interact with Dan Snyder. Outside linebackers. I'm kind of curious about this. We're talking about
Kyle Van Noy exists. I want to put that out there. I forgot he was on the team.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. That is one thing that is concerning. They lose Jadeveon Clowney. One thing I'm really curious with, we talk about Jenga pieces. We talk about Bateman being one, Flowers being one if he goes down, likely being one. Andrews kind of one to an extent. The whole offensive line to an extent is a Jenga piece. I think we're both pretty high on the idea of Odafe Oweh having a breakout season in terms of sacks. He has been a good football player for them, but the sacks have not been there. We've talked about that killer instinct and needing to develop it. What if that just doesn't happen and he's like a 4 or 5 sack guy again this year? What if he doesn't jump up to 7 or 8? Is that a big issue for them? What are you kind of feeling about that with Oweh if things don't envelop in the way that we need them to?
I think he's just going to frustrate offenses, and that can manifest into counting stats, box score stats, and when I say that, I specifically say sacks, he needs to stay healthy too. I think it's a contract year, so I think he is going to play. He already has. He played through shoulder injury. He had his whole shoulder strapped up his rookie year. He's a tough SOB, but he's going to play harder. He's going to be in the best shape of his life. He wants a monster deal. We've made the comparison of him to Matabike. That's something that I think a lot of the reporters that do press availability with the coaches talk about too. So I think he is ready. I think we've seen the wins, and it's the same process of just, if you get more sacks, you'll get paid more money, and sacks are what makes the world go round when you're a OLB or an IDL. So I do think we see him have an uptick in sacks. He's going to be the piece. They are going to send pressures where he is the one who benefits from the pressure, because him and Matabike are the two most explosive, athletic freaks on that front. And I think the amount of refinement in his game will just continue. Chuck Smith has done such a good job, is so well respected. And yeah, I think we could easily see, I don't know, I think we could see 14 sacks out of Owe. I think that's within the 25 to 75 range, like 13, 12 sacks is at the 75th percentile, and 6-7 sacks is at the 25th percentile. So where does that land you? Probably right in that Matt Judon range from a couple of years ago, 11.5, 10.5, 9.5, whatever it is. So I think that he's way better against the run than people give him credit for. And Zach Orr and the front and the pressures are going to feature him more than they have to this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. And overall, if he is still that disruptive player, I think they'll be fine. But I do think this and the offensive line, the outside linebackers and the offensive line, they're the two big questions for me. I mean, Clowney, they probably didn't even expect him to be the player that he was for them last season. But overall, it's just tough to lose that amount of sack production. And you can probably recreate some of that in the aggregate, but they are betting on Owe to kind of take that next step. So it's certainly another big question for me. I, for the record, do think he's going to take one, as we've been saying the last couple of weeks. But, it's just something to monitor. So moving on, defensive backs, we have Nate Wiggins, Jalen Armour-Davis, Bo Braid. They mixed these again with the corners and safety. So Bo Braid makes the team out of Maryland. I know a lot of people were pumped about that. A certain co-host, a River Hill guy of this podcast, was very pumped about it too. Maybe doing some tweets from the X52 podcast account that I think you were getting a little cute with there. Kyle Hamilton.
He didn't go to River Hill.
Or no, I guess he didn't. Yeah, you're right about that.
He went to
Reservoir, but yeah, it's whatever. All that, all those
they hate each other. Those high schools hate each other. That's stolen valor for RDT.
I don't know. That's these.
Then you rep the Hoco. Then you rep the county. But
yeah, these more DC based counties, I'm not as familiar with. You've got Brian, you've got Eric. You're familiar with that area now through the franchise. It's just a lot going on down in those areas that I'm just not privy to. Kyle Hamilton, Brandon Stevens, TJ Tampick Jr. I wasn't familiar with the junior, but okay. Sanusi Kane, another guy who kind of makes it on the back end there, but he was a draft pick, so not that shocking. Ardarius Washington back in the mix. Marcus Williams, the one-arm man. Eddie Jackson, Marlon Humphrey. Starting out in the cornerbacks, I mean, everything has looked fine and dandy with Nate Wiggins here. How quickly are we expecting him to be an impact player in this cornerback room for the Ravens? Is he getting his hands on balls? Is he coming down in the run game? Is he going to be one of these guys that the NFL account is tweeting out highlights of early on, in your opinion?
Well, I can tell you what he was doing last night. It was his 21st birthday, and he was just posted up at some super dimly lit club, just vibing into the camera by himself, which was fun.
That does not shock me in the slightest.
Yeah, that's what most people do on their 21st birthday. Yeah, especially if you're a young multimillion-dollar athlete. But Wiggins' impact will be strong, I think, early on. I mean, Mullet is not able to play. So you take Ardarius Washington, put him there. They're going to want to get Wiggins on the field, I think. And there's color to this that I can't quite recall. I do believe Marlon Humphrey started for someone for a semi-extended period of time, his rookie year that was hurt. Maybe it was Jimmy Smith. But I look at Marlon Humphrey's rookie year. He was drafted, 27 and 17, whatever the hell Marlon was, 16. Aren't exactly the same, but it was like, it wasn't the first corner off the board, but he's a first-round corner. You had other corners in place. I think it was, Webb and Smith maybe for Marlon. Something to that tune. And they wanted to get Marlon on the field. So nickel, third down, there will be packages. There's going to be receivers that the Ravens coaches, that Zach Orr and Hewitt like. Actually, is Hewitt gone? Am I insane?
I think he is, right? Didn't he got a coordinator job? Is that correct?
Yes. Let's see. Where did he go? I was just reading an article about him too.
Was it the Jags potentially? Do I have that right?
Chris Hewitt is still here. Assistant head coach, pass game coordinator, secondary.
Okay.
Hewitt is still here. Someone else left. I don't know. Who am I thinking of? It was the one from the Eagles. The other coach that was from the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Denard
Wilson
left. He's a DC now. So anyway, Chris Hewitt is going to like certain matchups where they're like, oh, we like Wiggins on this guy. And then you can kick Marlon inside or whatever. So third down, we'll see him. I think they're going to mix him in. I would say if relative, he's going to end up, I mean, again, Brandon Stevens, Marlon Humphrey, the probability of them playing 34 games is 6% maybe, probably less. So he's going to get starts when guys get banged up. And I expect him to make plays on the football. I expect him to be able to play off and play press and do the damn thing. I think he isn't a huge play man, try to get my head around and make a pick on the ball. I think he's like you tried to lob an alley-oop on me and I'm going to fucking stuff it at the rim kind of guy, kind of like how Marlon was coming out. So I didn't really see the Clemson. There are people saying like, oh, he's kind of like Marlon Humphrey. And I didn't really see that at Clemson, but in the preseason I did. And there could be a reason for that. They're in the same system. They play together now. So really physical at the catch point, times his jumps really well. So quick. His feet just stab the ground. It's like he doesn't have feet. He has knives for feet and they can just pull right back out and change direction, all those kinds of things. So I'm excited to see what he can do. We saw him run with John Ross. Not that he's good, but he's fast. And who knows if he's doing that fast anymore, but it was fun to say. So yeah, man, fitting into this group. I mean, Stevens can bump around with Jamar Chase. We saw him do that last year. We saw him frustrate Jamar Chase physically. Marlon is probably, the one who's seen it all at this point and has played well in different schemes, different styles of football, is the veteran leader. And then Wiggins is the freaky athlete pup that has a lot of energy and hopefully can stay healthy after getting dinged up in preseason. So those three are really strong. Jalen Armour-Davis looked great throughout preseason as well. He had a really nice camp in preseason from all reports about camp. I didn't go to camp this year for the first time in a few, but preseason looked good. Reports were all good on him. So then you're not even, you're 4 deep there, can never have enough corners. And they made sure that they could have as many as they could pretty much carry. Again, half of the roster is corners pretty much.
Yeah, no. And I love this group. That's probably a big reason for it. It feels very deep, but it's also, I think, still pretty top heavy. I'm expecting a bounce back from Marlon as he continues to get healthier and healthier and kind of adjusting his way into probably a little bit more of a veteran. I don't want to say old head quite yet. He's still not quite up there, but he's had a lot of injuries, a lot of wear and tear. He's played a lot of big time football going all the way back to Alabama. He's playing.
You're doing a little Mel Kiper there. Played a lot of big time football.
It's a big time football now. Okay, the SEC, Nick Saban, Alabama. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like he's kind of, it's funny, we think about Marlon as the quirky dude and the funny tweets, and he had the lined up hair, always looked very sharp. He was kind of a certain, we've made the comparison. He was kind of Kyle Hamilton before Kyle Hamilton. Now he's sort of, like we're saying, the vested veteran of this group. He's going to be their leader, which from a personal perspective, I don't know if I want Marlon Humphrey leading me into pretty much anything, but from a football perspective, you can do a lot worse. Brandon Stevens, a contract year.
He's the assistant to the general manager, and the general manager is Roquan Smith.
Yeah, you're making a Dwight Schrute.
He is the Dwight Schrute of this bunch.
In more ways than one. He's the Dwight Schrute. Shout out to Dwight Schrute and his John McCain endorsement back in the day. That kind of feels like there's, I could expect with this being an election year, I think Marlon's going to have many a take that he's going to be firing out on Twitter, some of which he'll believe, some of which he won't. And I don't know. It's a really interesting group. I think Brandon Stevens' contract here, he's, I think, going to continue to get better. I think Wiggins is going to be a stud right from the get-go, just like from what we were talking about when we recorded down at the studio. Like everything I saw that on that Clemson tape, a lot of it, seemed to traits-wise, you can't go too crazy in the preseason, but everything I liked about him, I pretty much saw, when he was getting action in these preseason games. So can he stay healthy? But the tenacity that you can't teach, the ability to, play above the rim. I don't know. I'm just very excited about Wiggins, and I like the guys that they have in front of him. So I love this cornerback group as well. Jalen Armour-Davis, another guy that's been in the mix for a little while. Can he maybe earn himself another contract of a decent size? We'll certainly see. So I like this group a lot. Moving on to safety. So Obviously, it's going to be Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams at the top there. Eddie Jackson, kind of a quiet summer signing, but a guy that has some pedigree that I think a lot of people like. People very excited about the Maryland product, Bo Braid, getting onto the team. I know you were pumped about that. Sanusi Kane. What do it's not as much a question. I would just ask you to describe this safety group in one word for me, Spenny.
Best. The best in the NFL. Best safety group in the NFL.
That was what I wrote down. Is this the best safety group in the NFL? But I didn't want to lead you in that direction. So I'm glad you said that.
There you go. That's big J type journalism from you as the host here. So yeah, it's the best in the NFL. Kyle Hamilton might be the best safety in the NFL. Marcus Williams, one of the best center fielders in the NFL. Eddie Jackson replaces Geno Stone as that third man. I think that is like, I said the 25-75 thing. It's like Geno is in that, in terms of his career, he's still maybe ascending a little bit. Similar skill set to Eddie Jackson, who's on the back end and getting close to the end here. He's in the, 75% of the way through his journey. So you 80-20 Geno Stone, and it's probably like 120 almost. Geno Stone was awesome. Eddie Jackson has struggled at times, but I think being the third guy and picking his spots for him and getting to sub in and not having all of the beat of having to go fit the run as a starter every single down, every single time the balls ran, the wear and tear should be better on Eddie Jackson. And that group still doesn't get to Ardarius Washington, who can probably be a very good slot for you, very good slot nickel, and some passing downs. And then Kane and Brady are both strong special teams, physical presences that aren't going to play a ton of defense, play a little. I don't think either of them should be playing much. I mean, it would take a lot of injuries to get there. Can that happen? Sure. But the plan is not to have them as really anything beyond a mild rotational player. Maybe Sanusi Kane has a couple packages early. By October, sees the field, 5-7 times a game. Maybe. So young bucks in the wings that can take notes from Hamilton and Williams and Eddie Jackson. I mean, my God, how great of a room could you be a UDFA and a 7th round pick to step into to be a sponge? So awesome. The new kickoff is going to be so fucking awesome, and they're going to be huge factors on that as well. Ardarius Washington's going to have to play on that. I mean, fucking Eddie Jackson might have to play a little bit of special teams, honestly, which I didn't think about. So that probably is going to happen. But yeah, I love this group. I think it is the best in the NFL. The Falcons do have Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, but I like Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton just about as much. And then that doesn't include having a Washington that can play in the slot, having Eddie Jackson also. So this is the best safety group in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Kyle Hamilton, I mean, he probably had an argument for Defensive Player of the Year last year. It's tough to win. It's getting tougher and tougher as an off-ball defender, I think, just because people look at sacks so much, and so many guys like TJ Watt are just really cranking up the sack production compared to where it was 10, 20 years ago. But I don't know, man. He got his hands on the ball a ton. He played a ton around the line of scrimmage, very versatile. Ken Zachor helped him take that next step into perennial Defensive Player of the Year type, conversation. Marcus Williams, just give me a healthy year. Just give me a healthy year and patrol the top. You can miss a couple games. Everyone's going to do that. But, just come back and be the Marcus Williams that we know you can be. Intercept a couple balls, and I think that'll be just fine. Eddie Jackson, love him as a rotational piece. Bo Braid, love the physicality. Watching him at Maryland, the Maryland games that I was able to catch over the years, he was a guy that was flying around the line of scrimmage. Ton of fun to watch, hair on fire type player. And Sanusi Kane, I think, will be a solid sort of special teamer there early on, and maybe he develops into something. And I love that Ardarius Washington back in the mix, another guy that I actually really liked at TCU. So it's been fun to track his career. And the fact that you don't really need him, at least you don't right now, is very nice. Moving on to the special teams, not a ton to say here. Kicker, Justin Tucker, punter, Jordan Stout, long snapper, Nick Moore. The only thing that I have for this group is I just wanted you to wax poetic about the new dynamic kickoff that you apparently love more than life itself, tweeted at 3:29 a.m. August 11th, 2024.
I do love it more than life itself. It makes Sanusi Kane and Bo Brady awesome. It makes Malik Harrison awesome. It pays guys. It puts food on the table for the children. They're more professional football players because of this. And I can't wait. I think that we have not seen shit of what this kickoff is going to turn into in terms of like running counter, running, sweeping, pulling, pitching the ball, lateraling, running speed option type of stuff with it from what this is because of the stagnancy of the lower speeds. The returner is going to be an advantage. The guys that can get a start quicker first are going to be at an advantage. So I love it so much. I don't like that Justin Tucker is the kicker. I think it should be Jordan Stout. That should take effect next year because, again, they said, why did we draft Jordan Stout high? Because he can kick the football. He can kick the piss out of the ball. Justin Tucker, he said he's got 9 different kickoffs he's working on for the landing zone where you have to land it between the goal line and the 20. Cool. That's great. You're paying him to kick field goals, not to fucking kick off. So I hate that very much. I don't think he should be on the field for that. I think he's going to end up getting run over several times. It's going to happen. And it's just stupid. So I don't like that part of it for the Ravens. He's going to have some sick kicks. He's going to have some stupid kicks. It's like stupid. It's going to be stupid. He's going to kick the ball out of bounds, trying to do some stupid shit. And then it's going to be like, oh, is this just let fucking Jordan Stout do it. So I do feel vehemently that way, clearly. But the kickoff is going to be badass. Curious to see where we'll factor returners in. Put Tylan Wallace back there. Let him do it. Just let him do it. Just give that to him. Fuck Deontay Hardy. I'm going to say that. He probably is going to have some good returns. Let's stick Tylan Wallace back there. He has the confidence. He is built like that. You want a returner now that is a little bit more downhill, like strong to run through contact. Because again, if someone grazes you, you're still at a speed advantage for the most part. So I like that a lot. Hardy's probably going to have the opening kickoff will probably return for a touchdown on some creative thing. But I do want to see Tylan Wallace back there. Very much so, if you couldn't tell. But pumped about the kickoff. Stout looked awesome in the preseason. The sky ball, the leg has always been there. It's just dialing it in. It's like it's just golf. Punting is golf. It's the dispersion of being able to put the ball within the 5-yard area or a 15-yard area. So the dispersion you can see coming down, and I'm excited to see that as well. So the special teams unit, Nick Moore hanging out over at the Ryan Ripken show and whatnot, one of the boys there. So he's back. After his, ACL? I think he tore his ACL last year. Yeah. It was a tragic injury or catastrophic injury, whatever you want to call it. But, yeah, fired up for the kickoff. Harbaugh, is just – are you still like – this is my question for Harbaugh about the kickoff. Are you still like that? Are you still him? Are you really still a special teams guy? Or are you an old man? That's my question for John Harbaugh. You better be dominating this shit. After all the shit everyone's talked about him being a special teams coach, when we go to practice, he's in the returners' ears. He is the one that is up in the returners' ears telling them shit. He is on the Gunners. The Ravens better be top 3 teams at perfecting this new dynamic kickoff, or else Johnny Boy might need to go up to the senior tees. I'll say it that way.
Are we in the trust tree right now?
Yeah.
I still don't get it. I didn't watch nearly enough preseason football. I didn't really pay attention. I did not do my homework on this dynamic kickoff. I don't know what to expect. 1 week from today, as people are listening to this, Justin Tucker or Harrison Butker, you're the guy who you love, for all the stuff that he does off the field. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what the rules are. I need somebody to send me some literature or a video that can break this down for me. Because I showed up to the dream that you have where you show up for the final exam. You didn't go into any of the classes. That's me with this new NFL kickoff. I have no fucking idea what this thing is.
It's like you just this is when I got my learner's permit. I drove 3 hours with my mom. If that, it might've been 90 minutes. That was you. You didn't read the booklet. Essentially the new kickoff works this way. Think of it kind of like the neutral zone in hockey. Like the 0 to the 20 is called the landing zone. You have to kick the ball there. If you can kick into the end zone, a touchback is still a touchback. A touchback now takes you to the 30, right? It was previously the 25. Okay. So they have penalized kicking the ball into the end zone, and they have incentivized kicking the ball into the 0 to the 20. If you kick the ball short of the 20, the penalty, I believe, is up to the 40. If the other team doesn't do whatever, you have to announce an onside kick. So onside kicks are not sneak attack. That's dead. Not a thing anymore.
Another shiv into Sean Payton's rib cage. I hate that.
Yeah, exactly. The Super Bowl stunner. So What else am I missing? The ball is kicked in the 35. So the big part of it as well is that think of the old kickoff, or excuse me, actually the new kickoff, there's no running start. The kicker is way further back from the kicking team now. They are way up ahead. I don't know what yard line they're on exactly. Maybe the 45. There's only 5 yards between the kickoff team, like the Gunners, and the blocking kick return team. So they are not running and giving each other concussions. There are less high-speed collisions. The kickoff cannot start, or excuse me, you can't move until the returner moves. So the returner has to receive the ball before I, as a gunner, or it's, like an L5, whatever, before I can move. Otherwise, it's a false start and a penalty. So I have to wait for the returner to have the ball before I can move. So these guys, instead of going like this on the field, instead of it's just a little collision. That was much more for YouTube. I took my hands, made them far away, took them closer away.
Yeah,
the collision, the high-speed collision is gone. So what does that also mean? That they have incentivized the returner to take the ball out because he's not going to get knocked out. He's going to have an advantage being able to lunge in and then go. He's going to be the fastest one. A lot of them are going to be, this is stupid. This is my own 2 cents. A lot of them are going to be boring, but there will be teams that find a weakness in this way more so and exploit it. There's going to be a lot more returns to like the 45 than there have ever been. There will be more returns where the other team takes the ball up towards midfield than there have ever been. And it's harder still to break away because everyone's already in your face, kind of. It's weird. There's going to be a lot of 35-yard kick returns now. So there's a landing zone, touchback goes to the 30. The guys are all up close, and the kicker's way far back. You can't go until the returner goes. You can just Google it. You can just watch.
We have 18-week seasons now. It's probably going to be expanded to 19 and then 20. We're playing in Germany. We're playing in Brazil. We're playing all over the fucking world. I have to take a CPA exam to understand what's going to happen on the kickoff here. I'm not arguing with you that maybe it's going to be cool. It probably will be. I don't know. Is the world passing me by? Are things just run amok and have they gone too far? Is the center cannot hold. It seems that, I am adrift at sea. I am puttering and billowing as we head into this season.
This is pathetic. This is a pathetic performance out of you. You're a John Harbaugh guy. You should know better. You should be on top of this.
I should, you know what? You're right about that. I should be, but and honestly, this is going to lead to some great John Harbaugh content to your point. I think there's going to be some good ones where he's going to be, jacked to the tits running around. I think there's going to be a lot of befuddled looks when he's going to try something and then some scrub is going to run back a, 109 yarder on them. If that's even allowed, I don't know if that's allowed anymore. What we should do, I think, at this point is do what the Canadian Football League does, which went viral the other night, where if you kick it through the end zone on a kick, you get 1 point, right? We'll just have game winners that way. We'll have a tie game, and if you get it through the end zone, you win. Let's add some more wrinkles. Let's make things more complicated. Let's add another, 10 pages here to the 1,200, page Russian novel of a rule book that the NFL has.
It's going to take you like 5 seconds to get. It is very simple. Here, we'll do this live. We will pull this up. I will go. You'll be comfortable with it after this. I pulled one up. Let's go here.
Is this going to get us a copyright strike?
It's on Facebook, so we'll see. It's all right. We'll sacrifice the monetization of this one for the purpose. All right. Kicker's back here. You can see my cursor. Kicker's all the way back here. I hope you can see. All right. He's back here. They are 5 yards apart now on the 30 and the 35. So the kicker's going to kick. Has to go between the 20 and the 10. So we'll see. They are not moving. Remember, no one can move until the returner sets the ball. So what does that mean? You can either try to look back to your returner or you can wait for your man to initiate movement. That's in the landing zone. Boom. Now they can go. You see how they took the first step. And some guys start to run backwards. There we go. So, it's very similar. They just moved everybody closer together so there's less high-speed collisions. They penalized kickoffs by 5 yards, or excuse me, touchbacks by 5 yards, and took the high-speed collisions out of it. So you'll be good to go. It's awesome. There's going to be some trickeration out of it. There's going to be some 2-returner, 3-returner stuff, some laterals. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what teams get into.
Okay. I just needed a visual aid. I'm a visual learner.
There we go. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to imagine without seeing it. They just made it. They just took the high-speed collisions out. That is all. They made kickoffs relevant again. They penalize you for touchbacks. I'll never forget last year, there was just this really, really viral TikTok where this British dude watches American football for the first time. He watched like 2 weekends, and he had 4 big takeaways of like shit that didn't make sense to him. One of them was like, I think he just said word for word, why the fuck do they kick the ball off? Why don't they just start the ball in the 25? He said, I watched 1 return and the rest was touchbacks. So it was just
who is this? Who said this?
It was just some random British guy that had a really viral TikTok. He's like, I'm going to watch American football. He's a big football footy guy. And he watched American football and he's like, why do they do the kickoff? And I was like, that makes so much sense. If I was new to the sport of watching it, why am I watching them just kick it out of the end zone every time? Why don't you just take the ball up? How many kickoffs are returned last year? Like 20%, 25% maybe. It's like 1 or 2 a game maybe. So I love it. I love that they're back. Special teams are fun. It is like the purest form of football when everyone's just running and blocking and hitting and tackling.
Yeah, I think it's good to bring it back, make it relevant, and also with the health concerns about the head-on collisions. I think it answers a lot of questions. My mind is open to it. I'm just I think where my stance is with just the
You're getting old. You're getting old and you're scared of change.
Well, yeah, I think you're probably cutting to the root of the issue there. So,
but what does this also do? What's another ramification? Form tackling, blocking, like all of those things are being emphasized again. And that's going to, in my opinion, trickle up. Is going to upside down Ronald Reagan. It's going to take Ronald Reagan and shake his boots out, fellow Teak. But it's going to make people have to tackle again. It's going to bring all these back. It's going to become more common. You're going to have to practice more on your blocking. These guys aren't offensive linemen.
Why did I not know that you were a Teak, by the way? That makes so much sense to me.
Got the Reaganator, baby. Got Aaron Rodgers is a Teak as well.
Wow. Now things are really coming together. Now this makes, that's the trio right there. Spenny, Aaron Rodgers.
Can't go Greek, go Teak. That's the big thing.
Well, that was literally the case at Salisbury for a little while until they were, I never
even knew Salisbury had one.
They did, but they were taken away well before my time for reasons that were nebulous to me. I don't think they were great.
Well, new kickoff, dynamic, talk app epsilon, dynamic, jumbo set, dynamic. We're back.
We are. Okay. All right. Well, that was a great sort of, I think we spent way more time on that than we did any of the position groups. So I hope everyone's happy.
We did. That was fun. I'm excited for it. We could probably have to give some final thoughts. Final thoughts are just.
Yeah, let me close this out. Injured list. Arthur Mullet starts on designated to return. I believe that's a 4-week list. So miss the first month or so. Keaton Mitchell, obviously on PUP. We'll see when he comes back. Practice squad actually officially announced as we were recording here. So I'll pull that up. So Corey Bullock, Maryland, offensive tackle. Chris Collier, running back. Bump Cooper Jr., first I'm hearing of that name at corner. Malik Cunningham makes it at the wide receiver position. Little intrigue there. Darian Dalcourt at guard. Joe Evans at outside linebacker. Kadar Holman, corner. Kadir Ismail, a little baby rocket there at tight end, makes it. I saw our guy Cadre had a fun little tweet about new life or something on the old X app today. That was great to see. John Kelly, old Juan Kelly there at running back, who we mentioned. Keith Kirkwood, a veteran wide receiver that they did bring in. I guess they liked him. They'll keep him around. Devin Leary at quarterback is going to make the P squad. Anthony Miller, another veteran who they brought in, who apparently they kind of liked him, so he'll hang around on the practice squad as well. CJ Ravenel, they kind of just had to keep him because of his name at defensive end there. Josh Ross, good to see him sticking around as well. Another guy who I think they probably like a little bit. And Dayton Wade, who I think people were curious if he'd make it as that 7th guy at the wide receiver room, hangs around on the practice squad. So that is your official P squad.
P squad, baby. Leary's Leapers. That's what I'm naming the P squad. Devin Leary. He's going to be the scout team god. He's going to throw hella picks, get your confidence up. A lot of people excited about Dayton Wade. Bump Cooper, people are excited about. Joe Evans, I go back and forth on. He has some flashes. He kind of just is like a stiff boy. Kind of a stiff boy. Fun group overall. Practice squad, we'll see. Everybody's really excited about Dayton Wade out of Ole Miss by way of college. I can't remember off the top of my head. But some potential there. The Ravens didn't sign any players off of the waivers. They didn't claim any players off the waivers, I should say. They did not have any of their waivers claimed either. So none of the players they waived. And yeah, so I don't know, man. The Ravens added Derrick Henry. They drafted Nate Wiggins. They see Patrick Queen and Jadeveon Clowney go. Kevin Zeitler's gone. New faces on the offensive line. They extend Bateman. They bring in Eddie Jackson. Retain Kyle Van Noy. What else? I mean, running it back, baby. Year 2 of Todd Monken. I think that's undervalued. That it's a full break for Todd Monken. He got his year of assessment. It's tough coming in, getting everything installed, adjusting, and then you get a breather for a second. You get a little bit of a breather through, a modicum of one through March and April a little bit. You're involved in the draft, of course, and you're never really taking that much of a break. But the pressure's off of you. You get your family vacation in June, and I'm excited. There should be more on Lamar Jackson's plate. We'll do a full season preview, but roster-wise, I mean, you don't have a proven outside linebacker that's, had that crazy production you look for. We talked about the receiver room a little bit. You suddenly have Derrick Henry. You're looking up your spine. Your spine goes Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Tyler Linderbaum, Michael Pierce, Justin Madubuike, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams. That's a sturdy spine. That's like a titanium spine. So
stiff shaft.
That's a stiff shaft. That's pro speed, baby. That's 160 club head speed. That shaft ain't bending for nothing. So a little curious here. Again, the Ravens were very measured. They didn't do a ton. Let a couple guys walk, brought in a couple ancillary pieces, and it's a Lamar Jackson show, man. I mean, we'll do a full season preview, but we talked about it. Zay Flowers, I think, is an important piece. Odafe Owe is an important piece. Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely. Those are kind of your guys. You'll throw the offensive line in there. People have talked about the offensive line until we're blue in the face. There's nothing else to say. We'll see who they trot out, and we'll see if they are dog shit or not. But those are the areas that we're looking to. And safety room is awesome. Tight end room is awesome. DBs are crazy, nuts. Really, collectively, corners and safeties. That whole we said safeties, but really corners too. I mean, Marlon, Brandon Stevens is fucking nasty last year. Got Wiggins. So DBs, tight ends. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. That's kind of your squad. Roquan Smith. That's how I'll boil it down.
Yeah, it feels like I said, it feels like a little bit of a correction back to the mean, right? They went one way last season. They get worked out pretty darn well for them. They'll go back a little bit, but they're not. It's not Matthew McConaughey. Sometimes you got to go back to actually move forward. I think they're slightly going back. Maybe they'll move forward. We'll see. It's hard to do much better than they did last season outside of winning the Super Bowl. We'll obviously get into that with the season preview episode next week on the Jumbo Set. But yeah, overall just excited about this year. I think it'll be a good one. I think this is an intriguing roster, rebuilding some spots on the fly. They've got some vested veterans now. Lamar Jackson, really officially a veteran. He probably already has been for a couple of years, but this is officially into that next kind of contract here. It feels like all the turmoil, all the dark clouds hanging over this team while they were waiting for that contract thing, that is officially in the rearview mirror. We're not dealing with that kind of stuff anymore, and it's just about building up for that new era. And we'll see how many games they're able to win this season. If they can make another push into the postseason, start to rewrite some other narratives. I don't know. It's an exciting time of year. So we're very excited. Anything else before we get out of here, my friend?
No, we've gone pretty long. I have some other stuff I'll announce next week. Got a fun little show I'm going to do once a week coming to the channel.
Fire intro to that show, if I may say.
I'm super pumped. My buddy who's in a pretty big Dead & Company or Grateful Dead cover band, Strangers Stopping Strangers. My buddy, shout out to Jeff Greenspan, made me an awesome song for that. So I'm fired up to get in some gambling. We'll do our big season preview, I guess, next Jumbo Set. And then we'll do the Chiefs preview with Jumbo Set. I guess we have to do that maybe Monday night.
We'll do Wednesday night, right?
Well, the game's on Thursday.
Yeah, so do it Wednesday release, or I guess
we're going to move Jumbo Set up in the week. And then we'll do the preview Wednesday. Yeah. Okay, that works. These Thursday games, man, they're tough sometimes. But it's good to get it out of the way. Then I can just watch Red Zone on Sunday. Excited about that. Excited about Red Zone adding the game to the late window too. It's good stuff. Yes, very much so. So I think that does it, my friend. All right. Well, thank you for spending the time with me. Thank you to everyone who spent time with us via listening or watching on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and subscribe to our page here at the X52 Podcast. Follow us on social media at X52 Podcast on X and on Instagram.
I am at Jake Louque. That's Louque. Spenny is at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4. You can follow the other clowns. Brian at Barstool Banks. Eric at EDITTI22. Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. Got a lot of good stuff going on. Orioles season still very much in full swing, so we'll be covering them plenty, going live after every series, going live and doing pods for any big moves that are made or, big news that happens. So a lot going on here in the land of X52. We appreciate all your guys' support. It's been a blast for this year and change that we've been doing it now, and only looking forward to yet another NFL season around the corner. So thanks again to all of you. Thanks to our presenting sponsors, Jimmy's Famous Seafood, Fed Thrill Sunglasses, Clipper City Barber Company, Black Eyed Susan Spices, all the good people that are involved here with us. Once again, thank you, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Really, really hard, and they execute your system, and that's what it's all about.
There
Yes, sir.
it is.
Trust.
He's pretty big trust.
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir. Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.